All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Renea Vargas Martinez. I am a Senior Program Officer here at Inclusiv, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first Juntos Avanzamos webinar of the year, expanding your service to the Hispanic community as a CDFI credit union. Today, we have a group of incredible guests that will take a deep dive into the CDFI certification and the relationship between serving the Hispanic market and the resources available through the CDFI fund. Our gratitude to our guests, Terry Ratigan, our senior consultant here at Inclusiv, Victor Miguel Corro, CEO at Coopera Consulting, and Maria Martinez, CEO at Border FCU. Now, before we start, I would just like to talk about the rules of the game for this webinar. This session will be recorded live for future use and distribution. We encourage all participants to please ask questions. You can do that through the chat box or just pressing the raise your hand button, and we can make you a panelist and let you speak to the rest of the webinar participants. All materials related to this webinar will be shared afterwards, including the presentation and the recording. So there's no need to worry if you have to step out or have a particular issue, you will be able to rewatch this webinar. Having said that, I now want to present our Senior Vice President of Membership and Engagement, Pablo De Filippi. He will be taking the webinar on from now. Good afternoon, Pablo.
Hola, Rene. Hello, everyone. Fantastic. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. It's been already a long day for many of you, I'm sure, but wanted to make sure that we are making you aware of that, of some of the connecting points between the Juntos Avanzamos network and the work that you do with Latino communities throughout the country, and some of the opportunities that we have been promoting here at Inclusiv. So a quick update about the program. I'm happy, really happy to share with you all that we are at 112 participant credit unions. So the program has been growing, continues to grow. We did have, a little hiccup last year. I wonder why. But things are taking steam again. There's a lot of interest, and that's why we felt important to help you all connect the dots. So the network is serving over 8 million consumers. We have presence in 27 states, DC and Puerto Rico, manages over 100 billion in assets. And of course, we have a growing network of 14 national partners. So really quickly in terms of what's coming next, actually on Tuesday we have another call, and this is specific to the Juntos Avanzamos network. It's around removing barriers to financial inclusion, right? How do we overcome some of these language limitations so we can actually better serve the Hispanic community? Let's move on to the next one. Yes, another announcement we have on April 20th, we're going to have our first Juntos Avanzamos proclamation. This is something, it's a celebration that we do when a credit union gets the designation, the Juntos Avanzamos designation. It's a moment, right, to recognize the work that the institution has done, but also to communicate that to the community at large. Financial Center is in Indianapolis, so it's going to be a nice way to kick out the year, and hopefully we'll have many more proclamation ceremonies taking place throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully in person. So yep, it's the year of the CDFI. You are probably sick and tired of getting our communications. Most of it is about CDF5, CDF5, and CDF5. But there's a reason for that, right? Not only the resources, but also this is so central to the work that Inclusiv has done since the beginning, right? So most of the work that we do in Inclusiv has this, dimension around financial inclusion, but also community development. So this is very much part of the DNA, not only of Inclusiv, but of the network that that of our network, of you, our members, and hopefully future members as well. So part of this work, of course, is around building a framework that can help credit unions better meet the needs of low-income consumers. So we did play a role in the establishment of the low-income designation, which of course gives you access to secondary capital. Some of you are probably deep into that if you are applying for the Emergency Capital Initiative program that Treasury opened up. Of course, we were instrumental in the establishment of the CDFI fund, another big piece of the puzzle. And a lot of the work that we do is around CDFI appropriations and making sure that Canadians gain access to those resources. And of course, everyone has seen the historic level of resources that have been made available this year. So let's move on to the next one. Well, our network, of course, it's a growing network of institutions. We have over 200 and no 300. Oh my God, I'm losing count of so many new members we have. Let's move on to the next one because I really want to share with everyone where we are in terms of members. We're approaching almost 400 members, which is incredible. But at the same time, expected. There's a lot of interest, but at the same time, we feel that the industry is ready for this. This is our moment, and we're seeing that reaction, that response. So we're really happy with the interest, but also with engagement of the industry. And we've gained only this year 35 new members, serving more than 13 million consumers, 180 billion in collective assets. So this is a really important part of the work that we're doing because it helps us advocate on the behalf of CDFI credit unions, on behalf of credit unions that are serving low-income communities and minority populations. So really quickly, let's just talk about our, expertise in the CDFI space. Anyone who actually joins our network has access to a CDFI eligibility analysis where we give you, a pretty clear indication of whether or not you qualify. If you don't qualify, we help you get to that point. And that's why we have not only our own internal expertise, but we work with Coopera. We work with many of our members. Maria is an expert in helping credit unions, get to that point where they can really, get certified as well. Once you become certified, we do your annual certification report, which is a requirement to maintain your certification. So we take that off your plate. You don't have to worry about maintaining that. You have access to the only national network of CDFI credit unions. We provide training, we provide intelligence and guidance on all things CDFI. Terry is our brain around research on CDFI impact as well. So you get a lot by joining our network and really getting this deeper dive into what it takes to be a CDFI, but also how we can measure our impact on communities. So with that, I'm going to just talk about the historic opportunity we're facing. You all heard about the 12 billion, right? So out of those 12 billion, 3.2 billion are being disbursed through the CDFI fund. A chunk of the money is already gone in the sense that the rounds closed. The rapid response program just closed, actually is closing today, 1.25 billion. So I hope that everyone who's a CDFI, went for that money. It's probably the easiest money you will ever get. So if you didn't do it, well, don't despair. There will be other opportunities. The important thing is to act on this. There's also the financial assistance grants that is actually closing on May 3rd, but to participate, you would have had to submit your SF-424, this past Monday. So kind of those two programs are off the table at this point, but we still have 1.75 billion left and that is not insignificant. So we're hoping that we can work with you all to make sure that credit unions get their fair share of those resources. And then we have the 9 billion that the Treasury Department is going to be disbursing. That round already opened up. It's a more complex program. We have done a number of webinars on that topic, but please reach out if you are considering applying for that secondary capital. And this is not it, right? Just to give you an idea of the magnitude of the monies we're talking about, the CDFI fund has taken 25 years to deploy a little bit more than the amount of money that they're going to be deploying over the next 12 months. So this is really a historic opportunity, something that we hope everyone takes notice, and we have seen that level of interest. But this is not the end of it. You know, when those 3.2 billion go out of the window, we are already advocating for a 1 billion appropriation for the fiscal year 2022, and hopefully have that become the floor for future appropriations for the CDFI fund. So this is a huge expansion of the resources that the CDFI fund has available, and we're hoping that we can make them, but by participating, we can give them the reason, the justification they need to get more resources, right? So it's going to be up to us now to deploy those monies in a way that is impactful to the communities we serve. And with that, I'm going to give it over to Terry Ratigan, our CDFI guru. Terry, please take it over.
Okay. Thank you, Pablo. Let me just set up can you see that?
Yes.
It's a picture that we've already seen today. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am going to skip a little bit through the first part because Pablo covered much of this material, but just one thing I would like to point out for those of you that maybe are still not entirely clear about what is the CDFI fund. It's been around since the early 1990s, and Inclusiv is the only national intermediary, as Pablo said. We were among the first group that were certified as a CDFI intermediary for credit unions and remain the only intermediary. But something to kind of step back and just be aware of, the CDFI designation is not something that's unique to credit unions. There are other types of financial institutions that can and are be CDFI certified. Although credit unions make up only about less than 30% by number of all CDFIs, it's important to remember to bear in mind that we are the dominant form of CDFIs when it comes to total assets and total people served. We serve more people than the rest of the CDFI industry combined. I will skip that part because Pablo already covered this, and move on to the changing face of CDFI credit unions, which has been quite dramatic. Since the beginning of the CDFI fund in the mid-90s, up until the eve of the Great Recession, there were only 123 CDFI certified credit unions. Combined, they served less than 700,000 members. The average asset size was just $29 million. Since the Great Recession, that has grown dramatically. And this particular chart only goes up through the end of 2020. At that point, there were 341 serving more than 13 million members, average asset size 500 million. And that really that is the average. We have, multi-billion dollar CDFI credit unions, and we have credit unions with less than $200,000 in assets. So it is the full range of asset sizes represented in the field. And as I said, as we showed a few slides ago, already just this year, the number has surpassed 360 CDFI certified credit unions, up from 341 at the end of 2020. So this is rising quite rapidly. I would not at all be surprised to see us pass 400 by the end of this year. What is a CDFI? In simple terms, it's a financial institution that does these three things, predominantly serving what are called eligible target markets. And we will get a little bit more into the definition of that. But these are basically underserved, economically distressed communities, is accountable to the people that we serve, and helps to build their financial capability to better use the products and services provided by the financial institution. We are often asked about the difference between CDFI certification and low-income designation. Ncua confers low-income designation on credit unions based on an analysis of total membership. Since Ncua is a regulatory agency, there are clear regulatory benefits that go along with it. CDFI certification is not a regulatory designation, although it does have some recognition by regulators such as Ncua and CFPB, but it is more known for the kinds of capital products and benefits that Pablo described just a few minutes ago. And also from our standpoint, we think it is an incredibly important designation in terms of the learning network of institutions that are very much focused on serving communities that need those services most. In terms of how you qualify for each, Ncua designation is based on an analysis of total membership. It's really based, in a sense, on where your members live. CDFI certification is much more of a lending test. And so in a sense, you can think of it as where your dollars go. That test is largely, and the ability to qualify as a CDFI largely depends on two factors: your opportunity to predominantly serve, low income or otherwise underserved communities, and your response to actually serving those communities. Every year, we credit unions that are high on both opportunity and response, we tend to say are eligible to be CDFI credit unions. Every year, we run an analysis of the entire credit union industry based on, where credit unions are located in relation to concentrated areas of CDFI target markets. That's what we call a high target market opportunity. And then we also look at the mix of products and services that they offer. And again, credit unions that are high in both, tend to be up in that upper right-hand corner, and they look a lot like CDFIs. This is very much a 30,000-foot view of credit unions in general, but it is telling that of the credit unions, about 900 credit unions in what we call the CDFI zone, about a third of them already are CDFI certified. So that tells us that there's probably another couple hundred easily that are highly eligible for CDFI certification, but just have not yet applied. We also are very mindful of the fact that there are a lot of credit unions that, just because of where they're located, it would be very difficult for them ever to qualify as CDFIs, just because they don't have the opportunity to predominantly serve those target markets. Nevertheless, they can be financially inclusive by really leaning into, maybe it's 30 or 40% of their members that are low income or underserved. And if they're doing everything they can to serve them, that's incredibly important for all of us. So specifically, what does it take to be a CDFI? The fund has 7 tests that need to be passed in order to become certified. 3 of them are automatic for all credit unions, that you are a legal entity, a financing entity, and a non-governmental entity. Of the remaining 4, many of them are close to automatic for credit unions. The primary mission test is automatic if you are low income designated. And there are ways to pass it even if you are not. Development services just means, do you provide financial education, financial counseling, coaching, those types of services to your members? I've yet to encounter a credit union that does not, particularly in this network. And then the accountability test, which again says, how are you accountable to your target market, to the people you serve? As democratically governed cooperatives, that's a pretty easy test for credit unions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But out of the 7 tests, what we're left with is the one critical test, which is the target market test. For credit unions, it really comes down to this. And specifically, it says at least 60% of new lending activities, not portfolio, but new lending activities measured in both number and dollar terms are issued to at least one or more CDFI target markets. And I've used that word a lot yet so far. So let's look at what is meant by a target market. There are 3 kinds in the CDFI world. One is called CDFI investment areas. They are geographically determined in this national map. They are the purple shaded areas because they are designated at the census tract level, and every census tract has a population of about 4,000 to 8,000 people. They are really, really tiny in urban areas, and they can be very large in rural areas. So at a national level, you can't really see a lot of the dots that are investment areas. But broadly speaking, about 46% of everybody living in the United States lives in a qualified CDFI investment area. The second target market, the second target market is called low income targeted populations. Those are individuals or families that have incomes below 80% of the benchmark for the place they live. So that is, bear in mind that that low income standard will change from place to place depending on the cost of living. And the third type of target market is called other targeted populations. So these are communities that have historically been underserved by mainstream financial institutions, and they are largely defined by race and ethnicity. And they include Hispanic, African American, Native American, among others that are stipulated by the CDFI fund. For any of these target markets that are designated or selected for certification, all CDFIs have to demonstrate accountability for each one that is part of their certification. So for example, the CDFI fund for an investment area would look to see if you have board members that live or have ties to CDFI investment areas. Similarly, for low income, they would look for board members with a majority that serve credit unions with a majority low income membership. And for what the CDFI fund calls other targeted populations, for that category, board members that belong to the selected community. There are 2 paths to becoming CDFI certified. One is the standard application, which is accepted by the CDFI fund on a rolling basis. As Pablo said, Inclusiv offers free eligibility analysis to our members if you are curious to see if you are eligible to be a CDFI. If you are not a member of Inclusiv, this year through a partnership that we have with CUNA Mutual Group, there are membership discounts for small and MDI designated credit unions through this initiative. There's also assistance available on the certification applications themselves. Anyone that might be interested in getting an eligibility analysis or assistance with a certification application can contact our good friend Jules at Inclusiv. The second way to become CDFI certified is what's called the Streamlined process. And this begins with a qualification step through Ncua. So if you are a low-income designated credit union, you are eligible to try this process. It involves submitting data to Ncua, and Ncua will determine if you are qualified for the Streamlined process. The good thing about it, if it works, is that it is much faster and much easier for credit unions to become certified. It is possible because of the standards applied for the Streamlined process are a little different than the standard application. It is possible that you can try the the Streamlined application and not be successfully qualified by Ncua. However, that does not mean that you're not eligible to be a CDFI. So many credit unions try the Streamlined process first. I always encourage credit unions to try it if you're interested. And then they find they're not qualified, but then they apply through the standard application and become a CDFI. There are 2 intake periods for the Streamlined application per year. We are in the middle of one right now. It will close on April 3rd. So if you are interested, you can use this link. Renee, I assume all the registrants will get copies of these slides, so you can just click on that link and go right to that page, upload your data. If you have any questions or difficulties with the Streamlined process or interpreting the results that you get from Ncua after submitting your data, please let us know. That's a big part of what we do, helping credit unions just navigate their way through. And with that, I will turn it back over to
me.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Terry. Yes, one clarification is that you don't have to be low income designated to become CDFI certified. That requirement is only to take advantage of the Streamlined process from Ncua. In fact, there are a number of non-low income credit unions that are CDFI certified.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think at last count, it's about 10% of all CDFI certified credit unions are not low income designated.
Yes, that's great. So going back a little bit to Terry's point about the target markets and that other targeted populations, OTP, that's the connection that we have now with the Juntos Avanzamos program, and where we want Victor to illuminate all of us, because it's often overlooked component of the CDFI certification, and we're hoping that we can enable some of you that may have attempted to become certified but fell short, just to look at your Latino membership and see if that helps you close that gap, that 60% gap that Terry was talking about. So with that, I'm gonna introduce mi compadre, Victor Corro from Coopera, who's gonna just share some of his wisdom with all of us. Victor,
no, I'm not sure about wisdom, Pablo, but yeah, we're compadres and we have been really good friends for a long time. And now it feels like we just work together every day, because I see Pablo every day. So I think that's a good thing. Anyway, I hope that you can see my screen here. Yes. And what I wanted to talk about is, a little bit about a context here as to why we, all CDFI, DEI, all of this stuff. We are in the business of including people into the financial services. That's what a credit union does. We're here to financially include, especially those that have no access or bad access to financial services. And so when we think about financial inclusion, basically we are, because of our differences, in spite of our differences, or just because we all are different, we all want to belong. And financial inclusion means that we're a part of this puzzle that we see here. That's the best way in which I can explain our business model of inclusion. Why are we talking about so much inclusion lately? Well, because the country has a number of people that do not really have good financial services, but the country also have more than 5,000 organizations, financial cooperatives that are there to promote the financial well-being through this model of inclusion. Again, the why. The United States is 329 million people already. It's a vast, huge country, very complex, very diverse. But at the same time, when we talk about diversity, the country is already 40% diverse in terms of ethnicity and how we identify ourselves. Again, in terms of ethnicity, where our family comes from. Again, total 329 million, 40% already multicultural consumers here in the United States. The other thing that we have seen lately is that every generation that goes by, it gets more and more diverse. This means that consumers will need different, have different needs, whether they're Black, Asian, white, or Latino. And the more that we know about the consumers and in our space, our members, the better it is for us, because we will provide financially, culturally attuned, culturally relevant products and services for this growing diverse population that we have in the country. And then that brings me to the OTP that Terry and Pablo were talking about. Well, Coopera, and as you know, is a consulting and analytics firm that has helped credit unions for about 15 years now to understand the nuances of mainly the Hispanic consumer mindset. And we have been expanding now lately into more multicultural markets in the name of inclusion. However, the focus of this presentation and within the framework of Juntos Avanzamos is to let everyone know that the United States has already almost 63 million Latinos and growing, making this community about almost 20%, or 1 in 5 consumers is of Latino origin in the United States. So, and in terms of sheer numbers, this is the population that is growing in the United States. But particularly, it's important for credit unions because it's one of the most underserved and financially marginalized communities in the United States. So at the same time that we're growing, we are not underserved. So this really means that there is an opportunity for credit unions to really fulfill their mission of financial inclusion. If you have a growing population that is underserved, it just makes sense that we worry that we pay special attention to including this population. So that's really the, how the growing population intersects with our mission of inclusion. One important thing to mention about the Hispanic market is that it is not a monolithic market, not a homogeneous market. Just looking into the people that we have on this call, Pablo has an origin from Chile. Myself, I have an origin from Panama. Rene his family comes from Puerto Rico, and Maria, I believe, you live right on the border with Mexico, and you have ties to Mexico. So Maria, Pablo, and Rene, all of us have very different ideas, very different consumption patterns and relationships with a financial institution. And it really depends on, our country of origin, our acculturation level, our ability to speak Spanish, and our preference in English or Spanish. And all of that means nuances that the credit union system needs to know in order to serve this population better. As CDFI is asking us to serve this, many different diverse populations, it's really important to get to know the nuances of all these populations. How do you do that? By being curious and also by using analytics. So that's how we have actually partnered with Inclusiv to help credit unions really find many, many nuances within their membership file so they can apply and get that certification or get recertified every year in terms of CDFI. Going back to the Hispanic population, why is it so important in our space to get to know their nuances? Well, as you can see, the population growth in the United States, Hispanics have grown from 2000 to 2020, just in 20 years. This population has grown 78%. Asian, percentage-wise, 88% has grown. If you can see, oh, I'm sorry. You can see the Black population, African American, 21%. The non-Hispanic white population has only grown 1%. So who's fueling the growth of population in the United States is actually people of color. And we do need to really pay attention to this. This is not a trend anymore. This is a fact that this is the population that is growing within the country. Credit unions really need to get attuned and know that inside and out. And to put it in a different way, so you can see, back in 1940, there were only 1.9 million Hispanics in the United States. That's probably the population of a suburb of Houston these days. Right now, when it comes to what we see, by 2050, Hispanics will be 29%, almost 1 in 3 consumers in the United States. Again, it behooves us to really get to know the statistics and be curious, and then create tools for inclusion like this CDFI partnership that we do have with Inclusiv through Juntos Avanzamos, so that, you know, credit unions take advantage of this and in the end fulfill their mission of financial inclusion. So I don't want to get too much into too many nuances of this, but just suffice to say that, you know, the Hispanic market is nuanced, is complex, is growing, and it is financially underserved. And this is why we're here. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Victor. Yes, one clarification, although you didn't mention Terry, my family adopted him, so technically he's Chilean as well.
There you go.
What's up, Chicago?
So that's great, Victor. Look, beyond the resources available through the CDFI fund, this conversation around target market and serving minorities is so aligned with the larger conversation we're having at the industry in terms of DEI, right? So I think that all these things are coming together. And again, this is another opportunity for us to leverage, you know, the work that we're doing in the Latino community to show, number one, that we are really embracing diversity, that we understand that that the country is changing, right? That the nation is going to be very different, and that we have to be more diverse, and we have to connect with these communities moving forward. So with that said, I want to now ask Maria to join this conversation. Maria is an amazing example of how all these things connect, right? Because at the end of the day, we are not running a credit union. We are providing advice and resources, but you guys are doing the heavy lifting. And Maria has done that in such a way that it's an inspiration to us. Maria, I'm going to charge you for this, but nobody, you know, we don't need to say her last name. We say Maria, and it's like in Puerto Rico, you say Maria and people think hurricane. I say Maria and I think force of nature, right? Someone who inspires, someone who doesn't accept no. She builds. And Maria, please share some of your insights because this is all real.
Thank you, Pablo, and thanks to the other panelists, Victor, Terry, Renee. Thank you so much for having me here today. And today I want to tell you why is it that you need to become a CDFI. Because I think we did this back in 2010 when I started looking into it. I remember I talked to Pablo at the time, and CDFIs have always been around, but I didn't know what it really could be for us. And when we started talking about my membership, we said, well, there's a big need for me to bring in products into this community, especially products that have to do with financial counseling or anything that the underserved may need. I knew I had the members that were underserved. When we started doing the analysis, we figured out that I served 13 counties, and 12 of the 13 counties were in investment areas. So that was the first step in becoming a CDFI, that I knew that I could do something with it. For me, it was almost a given because the areas that I serve, they're considered underserved areas, investment areas. But even if I have to do a little bit more digging, I could have done it because there's so many tools out there. And I think nowadays there's even more than there was back in 2010. And when I first became the CDFI, we submitted all the application, it came back, and then I didn't know what to do with it. I said, okay, I'm a CDFI, what do I do with it? At that time, there was through the Treasury Department, there was a secondary capital funding that was available to CDFIs, and I went ahead and applied for it. And back then, I got a little bit over $2 million as a capital, that you could use as a capital. And so that helped. The secondary capital helps you a lot because it also brings up your net worth ratio, because you're carrying it as on your capital on your balance sheet. So a lot of the things that happened back then, it helped us. Not that the credit union was doing bad, because we were never like that, but it just made us stronger. And then the interest rate at that time was very low, that we could afford it. So that was the first advantage that I took of the CDFI designation. And then came the grant writing. And so, I started looking into it. What do we do? How do we go about it? And so, I got a lot of help through Inclusiv. I think also at one point, there was a program through the National Credit Union Foundation where we could have financial counselors, because they had some programs going on, and then they ended up passing it on to Inclusiv, which was the federation at that time. And so through that, we developed financial counselors within the credit union. And I tell you, if you don't have financial counselors within your credit union, it's well worth it. I know when you look at the bottom line, you're going to say, well, I'm offering a free service and there's really no return on the investment. What there is, you cannot put a value to it, but the people that you're helping, they're going to bring you additional people. And I tell you, when you serve Hispanics and you do somebody good, they'll bring all their compadres and their comadres and their friends and everybody in the neighborhood. They'll gather them up. They'll even carpool for them if they need to bring them to the credit union. So you gain a lot of members by just doing something good in your community. So we ended up applying for a CDFI grant back in 2017, and we were awarded the first grant. And so with that, we on the application, we used it for reserves, of course, but you also have to concentrate on the financial products that you're going to have. So your development services, your financial products, so you concentrate on things that you could do for the community. So we started a credit builder program that, to this date, we still have in effect. And we've done a lot of little things. My next step, it's going to be for small business lending. We did do the PPP loans, which we had never done small business lending at all. And this past year, because of COVID and the PPP loan being around, we ended up doing that. And we did a little bit over $4 million in PPP loans, which was really good for my area. So it's been really good for us to have a CDFI, because we bring in money into underserved communities. So don't think of your credit union, but this is also something that you're coming into your community and you're bringing in new things to your community, and you're also taking a lot more risk. yes, you're taking a lot more risk, but I tell you that if you look at my financials, you can download my 5300 report. You can look at my financials, and my credit union has done so well, because we're able to take the risk. And even though, you have reserves so that you can take more risk on your members because they have maybe low credit scores, or maybe because you're trying to make them get a better credit, build up a credit. You take those chances with them, but they become so involved in your credit union that you're going to do so much business with them. Right now, I was looking at Victor's graphics, and you notice there on one of the graphics, Victor, that you had out there, you had how the Hispanic population is growing and growing, and it's going to continue to grow. And I think if you're not serving them, it's wrong to begin with. But I tell you, credit unions were the perfect financial institution for them. And some CEOs, they'll call me and they say, well, I don't have any Hispanics in my field of membership, or I don't see them. Well, it's maybe you're not looking for them, but they're there. They're everywhere. I know. I don't care what city I go to. There's always a community of Hispanics. So you got to start somewhere. And it may take maybe opening up a branch, or maybe even, joining in with somebody else to do that. One of the things that I get asked a lot right now is how do I go about becoming a CDFI? Terry, you had a lot of information on that, and it's awesome information. I mean, if nothing else, review this webinar over and over until it sinks on you. But I tell you, Inclusiv it's a big help. And, once you become a member, it's well worth it, and I'm going to charge you for this, Pablo.
No worries.
But it is. I mean, it's if you don't know how to do something, then look for somebody. Put it on your budget. Build that budget item. So that you can have that association dues. So that you can pay them to somebody that can help you with it. But there's so much funding this year. Pablo mentioned it. There's a lot of money, and we already applied for the rapid response. We are going to be applying for the financial assistance program also, and I believe there's another one coming up, right, Pablo, on the small lending.
That's right.
So there's a lot of opportunities out there. I highly encourage y'all to become a CDFI, and if you don't know whether you qualified, then start looking into it. Thank you.
So just for clarification, this was not a commercial.
No.
Really
Also,
appreciate it, Mary.
Yeah, also, Pablo, I think it's, I know we haven't mentioned much about being a minority depository institution. If you go on the web, and you look it up, it's really easy. There's a questionnaire that you take out there, and you verify whether you are a minority depository institution. I know through the Juntos Avanzamos program also, there's an opportunity there. Just most recently last year, the National Association of Latino Credit Unions and Professionals, we launched ourselves as a national association. And so you're going to be hearing more about that. And I'm hoping that we can do a lot of work with Coopera, with Inclusiv, and of course with the Juntos Avanzamos Credit Union, so that we can, do more work within the Hispanic community.
That's great. And yes, the MDI designation it's going to be even more valuable credential now because of the opportunities that we are seeing coming down the pipeline. Maria, you said a couple of things that I want to reemphasize. You said that, this funding is not really, it's about expanding capacity, right? This is not a subsidy, right? This is not monies that we ask and obtain to kind of do something new for some people. It's not an experiment. This is about scaling up what we do well.
Yeah.
And that's important for everyone to understand, because that's really what the CDFI Fund wants us to do, is to expand proven products that we have that are impactful, make those products more available, go deeper in the marketplace with those products. The second thing that you mentioned, Maria, it's the importance of financial counseling. That is really, really, really important, because one of the requirements to become a CDFI is that you have to provide development services. And that means, helping your members become better borrowers, give them the resources, the tools they need to use your products effectively. People don't default because they want to default, right? They, with the right advice, you can turn people around, and that's feasible. And Maria, you have shown that that's possible. And the third thing that I want to rescue here is your small lending program, your small business lending program, Maria. I think that that's, the next frontier for many credit unions. The Paycheck Protection program showed that we as an industry can be activated and can really close the gap. I really believe that moving forward, that's going to be our niche, should be our niche. And I'm so happy, Maria, that you were able to finance 4 million. I mean, because you guys didn't do this before, right? So this was something new.
Yeah, that's true.
That's incredible. So kudos to you and your team. Again, you are such an inspiration. And perhaps with that, we have like 8 minutes now, Rene, maybe to some Q&As.
Sure, and we already have some questions. And the first question is a general question from Chris Giles. And the question is, we are a first-time CDFI applicant. I have submitted the necessary documentation, but I have never received anything back for confirmation. So I guess we could talk a bit about what happens when a credit union submits their CDFI certification to the fund.
Sure, I can take that. So from the point of a certification application, the CDFI fund itself has a 90-day kind of benchmark for turning around those applications and giving you a decision. Be aware, if you have an application pending right now, there was a backlog of certification there was a surge of applications towards the end of last year. And because of the deadlines for the Rapid Response Program, Financial Assistance Response Program, up until February 26th, they were working exclusively to clear every single application received before December 1st of last year. So if you applied after December 1st, there's a little bit more of a delay in their processing. I do know, in fact, I was talking with the head of the certification unit both yesterday and today on some of these issues. I know they're working as hard as they can to clear this backlog. I would just say, first wait until 90 days. If you have not heard anything within that time, then you can submit a service request to the CDFI fund. We can also follow up as well. We do this all the time for credit unions. So if it seems like nothing, it's not unusual to have silence for a long period. But if that goes, particularly if it goes more than 90 days, please let us know, because we like to track this stuff, and we also do communicate with them all the time. I should say that's for the standard application. For the streamlined application, if you've been qualified by Ncua and then submit a streamlined application through the CDFI fund, it's about half the time. So usually within about 45 days, you would get a response.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Terry. And that is pretty much the only question that we have open so far. There was an additional question about an upcoming webinar. There are a ton, and that question was also by Chris. Chris, there are a ton of events. Some of them are hosted by Copeda, others are hosted by NALCAP, others are hosted by Inclusiv and Juntos Avanzamos. All that I can say is we do have a Juntos Avanzamos engagement call that has to do with language and translations. That's going to be on the 30th of this month. It's only inclusive for Juntos Avanzamos Credit Union, but if any one of you is interested, you can shoot me an email at rvargasmartinez@inclusiv.org. And I think that, Pablo can authorize an exception.
Absolutely.
For you to participate in that call. And Victor will be there as well. So, you'll be in good hands. Any additional questions through the Q&A? Anyone else?
Renee,
Now,
I just wanted to,
yeah.
I just wanted to make one comment too. One of the things that it's very important for credit unions is to start building up your relationships with third parties. Those partnerships that you develop,
Yeah.
whether it will be the school district or the housing authority or the Mexican consulate or the Guatemalan, or any consulate. I think it's important that you start, jotting down all those, because when you submit applications, they look at all the activities that you're doing in your community. So I highly recommend it, and keep track of it on an annual basis.
That's a
Excellent.
great point, Maria. Thank you for bringing that up. Another point too is just talk to your peers. Maria, and I'm not sending people your way, Maria, but I think that just connecting with practitioners is so important. And this is not just at the CEO level, but make sure that your lenders are connecting with CDFI lenders. Make sure that your marketing people are comparing notes with the way that CDF5 trainers are marketing to their communities, because it's slightly different, and it's important to have that perspective. So networking is a key part of being a successful CDF5, and that's again another platform that we can offer to you all is just the power of this collective knowledge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to add also that, this topic is very complex, and credit unions are very busy. And what we see is that because it seems complex, then, that leads to inaction, or no, we'll just do next year. However, you have partners here that help you navigate that complexity of the application, or understand what you're eligible for. So, there are interested parties in the industry, like Inclusiv, like Opera itself, like so many others that are part of the a CUDI collective that we're all part of. And again, what we're trying to do is remove barriers from getting credit unions to include more and more. And so, yeah, trust, the advice, and trust that there are organizations that really want to make sure that you include more. And this is the way to do it.
Thank you, Victor. So we have two additional questions. They're both from the California delegation. It seems one is from Tyron Conde. He's from Downey Federal, and his question is the following: is getting staff trained or certified for financial consultation, maybe that's financial counseling, a part of CDFI or something different?
Okay, so I can say that is not there are different ways that you can provide or build that capability. Here at Inclusiv, we have Pathways, which is a financial counseling platform. We're happy to talk to you guys about that. Maria mentioned the National Credit Union Foundation. CUNA has the certification program as well. So there are different ways that you can start building that within your credit union, but we're happy to provide that information offline, Tyron. And nice seeing you, actually.
Yeah. All right, and we have another question from Enrique Mesa from Mission Federal in San Diego. Hi, Enrique, good to see you again. So the question is the following: any examples of credit unions plus CDFI partnerships / collaboration? This would be for a credit union that is not CDFI certified, partnering with a local CDFI entity.
Okay, no, Enrique, we gotta get you certified. You need a partner. Well, you could and should actually, right? But in the long run, I think that Mission Federal has the elements, I think that we have to do a little bit of that work, and just to give you that baseline. But yes, we can give you a couple of ideas in terms of collaborations. There are loan funds that are like to actually develop relationship with depository institutions, so we can take a look at that in San Diego. But by all means, let's continue this conversation. I seriously believe that Mission Federal should be a CDFI.
And before we go, I mean, we don't have any more questions, but we do have some comments. And we have a comment here that I'd like to point out from, I believe this is Gloria Escobar. And Gloria says, for the Latino community, not just the father comes to open his account, but the entire family comes to open their account. So when we think about products and services, credit unions need to provide something that is inclusive to the whole family. And I do have to say, I had the privilege of visiting that credit union and participating in their Juntos Avanzamos proclamation. There were like 300 people there. I was blown away. I never thought that you would have so many people engaged in Eastern Massachusetts and that would go party at a credit union. So kudos to Gloria and her team.
That's great. Another inspiration.
Okay, there was a comment about Pablo's beard. I mean, I tried the beard, but it didn't look good on me. That's why I could not compete with Pablo. Sorry.
That's right. Well, so we are at time. So I think that I'll just give a bit of space for all of the panelists to say final words, and then we will be finishing this webinar. So let's go with Terry.
Yeah, just appreciate this opportunity to talk to everybody. And if you have any questions about certification and being a CDFI, please be in touch.
Maria.
Just same thing. I mean, also talking on behalf of the National Association of Latino Credit Unions and Professionals. You'll be hearing more about us. We're planning a webinar coming up next month and every other month or every month maybe. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Maria. Victor.
Muchas gracias for having me here today. And I just want to say, let's think about all the people that we are unintentionally leaving behind. This is a way that we can actually include everyone and then just be pretty intentional about fulfilling our mission of financial inclusion.
And of course, Pablo, for the last word.
Well, let's do it, right? I think that really, we have to, if you are not certified, take a look, just talk to us. Let's make sure that we give you that first assignment. This is not an absolute, thing. If you don't qualify, it doesn't mean that you are out of the game. It just means that you have to do a little bit more work, but you're not alone. We are here to help. And we have all this amazing network of, credit unions and professionals that are, ready to help and motivate and support. Join us.
Excellent. So before we leave, I just wanted to say hi to, Cynthia Colon, Brian Gately, and Linda Rossi from Ventura County, who are also here and commented on the chat. Well, so time is up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Terry, Maria, Victor, and of course, Pablo, for your participation. And this is our first Juntos Avanzamos webinar of the year. We look forward to seeing you in our events and other webinars throughout the rest of 2021. Thank you so much and have a great afternoon and end of week. Goodbye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye, Abby.